Hello and welcome to Learning Plan 2, 2.2 Lab 3. So go ahead and open this file in your browser and in Visual Studio. This one is a little different. As you see, there's several accordion breakdowns here because this is prior to this lab, I just had a list of steps for you to do and told you, hey, type this, do this sort of thing. We're starting to let go of the reins a little bit towards the end of this learning plan, to where I'm not telling you specifics of how to do things, but I'm telling you problems, because that's really how it is going to occur in the real world. Someone is going to come to you and say, hey, I have this problem, and can you build a program to fix it? They may not even be able to articulate the problem exactly. You have to kind of figure it out. So this is kind of getting you started down that path. So let's go through this together, and I'll show you kind of how this works. So the first thing is a problem statement. So you may have someone says, hey, can you write a program that asks the user for two numbers? I want to add those together and output them. Okay, now, I'll be honest with you. In reality, you're going to get more complex problems than that, but this is just getting you started to think about, okay, someone is asking me to build something for them. Now, how do I get started? Where do I begin? Well, it helps to write down the problem statement like this, to figure out and break it down and dissect where we're going to go with this. So, first thing is in the nouns section, list the important nouns from the problem statement. So if we go back to the problem statement, as we read through, we need to figure out what are the nouns that we pull out of that problem statement. So here we have the nouns are the two numbers and some. Those are the important nouns. So yeah, we're going to write a program, that's a noun, but we need two numbers and we have the sum. And then the verbs. So the nouns is going to basically give us our variables. And then we have verbs, which is going to help us with the process. So if we go back to our problem statement, we need to ask the user for a number, we need to add them together, and we need to output them. So ask, add, output. So now that we have the nouns and the verbs, we got to think through, okay, what do we need in order to accomplish this task? So first thing is, remember, we're asking the end user for two numbers, so we need input variables for number one, number two. Those are the two numbers. You could name yours differently. This is just what I happen to name mine. Then we need to be able to output that information. So in the output variables, we're outputting both the two numbers we received from the end user and the sum of those two numbers. So I have number one, number two, and sum. So we have our variables that we're using to ask the user and acquire those numbers, and we have the variable we're using to output those numbers. We're asking them, but we need to be able to figure out how do we do this in a process. So here's how it's going to work. Here's the steps. We're going to prompt the user for the two numbers and store them in their appropriate variables. We're going to convert the user numbers to a number using the number function, because all information we get from a prompt from an end user comes through as a string. So if we were to add those together without ensuring that they're a number, it would not add them together, it would concatenate them. So if we have 5 and 10, instead of 15, we would get 510. And so we want to make sure they're numbers. Then we're going to add them together and store the result in a sum. And then we're going to output those two numbers along with the sum that we've created. So now that we've got our plan, we're going to find your code starts after this line section. And based on what we just did, we need to write our code. So let's go to our code here. Now, by the way, when you go to fill out this information, like your nouns and verbs, all you got to do is look for the pre-tag with the class black green, and that's where you put in your information there. So if I go down and find your code starts after this line, in my variables section I have my three variables, number one, number two, and sum. My assignment section is where I'm asking the end user. So my number one variable, I'm prompting the end user to enter a number, and then I'm converting that to a number. Same thing with number two, asking, then converting, and then I can add number one and number two together and store it in my sum. Then I'm using document rights for number one, and then a string of a plus, number two, a string of equal sign, and then my sum. And document writing that all out will give me, in this case, 5 plus 10 equals 15. Now let me show you how this is going to work with the prompts on the recording so you can see this. If I reload my page, it says please enter a number. I can enter the number 5. Please enter a number. I can enter the number 10. And then if I go and look at my page, 5 plus 10 equals 15. So any numbers the end user puts in, it's going to do that math for you. So please enter a number. I'm just going to enter a random long string here. Please enter another number. I'll enter another random long string. And here we have the figure all together, added together. So it allows you to now take the next step to where you're interacting with your end user, gathering information from your end user, storing those in variables, and taking action on that end user. If you have any questions, let me know, and happy coding.